The Utah Mammoth qualified as Wild Card 1 in the Western Conference in 25-26 in only their second season in Salt Lake City. And it's the first time the Arizona-Utah franchise has qualified for the playoffs since 2020, that coming in the bubble. And before that, last time the franchise made the playoffs was in 2012. They gave a pretty good accounting of themselves in that opening round, Neil, before falling to the Vegas Golden Knights in 6 games.
They did. They're a young team. They're an exciting team to watch, I think. They've got some good young players there. Clayton Keller leading them off as their captain, the kid from St. Louis. They got a lot better this year. We expected them to be knocking on the door of a wild card spot, and they did more than that. They got in through that door. So real progress for the Utah franchise.
We kind of thought that this team might have some good things ahead as far back as 2 years ago. And you remember, Neil, that the team really held its own for the first 45 or so games of that 23-24 season. Then the word started to get out about the move, and they went on an 0-12-2 run after that, basically killing their season. After they made the move, they did a pretty good job, but they were spotty at home, particularly during the second half of the season. They lost some critical points late in the year in their own building, and their .537 winning percentage at the Delta Center was tied for 22nd in the league. You had mentioned Clayton Keller, and that's only part of the foundation that they had in place there, because in addition, they had Dylan Guenther, Nick Schmaltz, and Logan Cooley. They acquired J.J. Peterka via trade from the Buffalo Sabres. And on defense, they had Mikhail Sergachev, Ian Cole, John Marino, and Sean Durzi. And they signed Nate Schmidt as a free agent from the Stanley Cup-winning Florida Panthers, and Karel Vejmelka in goal. So it's not hard to see why we thought this team was primed to make a push for the playoffs this year.
Absolutely. And Dylan Guenther is a pure goal scorer, really good player. You mentioned all the rest of the good talent that they've got. It takes time to learn how to win and to learn not how to lose. And I think that this team is on the learning curve, but I think they're going to get even better again next year. They've got to do something in goal. Karel Vejmelka is a good goaltender, but they're going to need another one.
Vanecek being an unrestricted free agent. But, interestingly, so much of what we look at is statistically driven. And this team only marginally improved over the course of the last year. They only improved by 3 points from last season to this. And those 3 points, ironically, did come at home. Their special teams rankings actually dropped, but their goal differential went from -10 to +28. Their goals against ranking went up from 17th to 12th, but the goals against average and the save percentage were comparable numbers. They did make a key acquisition late in the year, getting MacKenzie Weegar from Calgary. But I think the real difference for this team this year, Neil, was some of the performances down lineup. Lawson Crouse equaled the career high with 24 goals and a career best +20. Michael Carcone, 16 goals, career best 31 points. Kailer Yamamoto, who was forgotten about at some points during the season this year, 13 goals, became more visible as the season went on, and he had 5 points in the opening round series against Vegas. And when you factor in forwards like Kevin Stenlund, Alex Kerfoot, Jack McBain, and Brandon Tanev, this was a team that André Tourigny could actually roll 4 effective lines.
Absolutely, he could. And a comment I'd like to make about Utah only moving up 3 points in the standings is that this was not a strong conference, the Western Conference. And so to qualify for the playoffs was easier in the West than in the East. They've got to be aware of that next year. They've got to make even more improvements.
But didn't you think that among all the teams that they were battling for, and we talk about Nashville and the Kings and San Jose and the Anaheim Ducks, and you can even put in the St. Louis Blues and Winnipeg Jets in there for that matter, that they always kind of maintained a little bit of an edge over those teams throughout the season, meaning they were just a little bit more consistent?
Agree totally. They were a consistent team from start to finish. They weren't a great team, but they didn't go on long streaks of losing, long streaks of winning, and go up and down. Like a lot of teams in the NHL go through that. This was a team, as you said, that was pretty consistent from October to April.
So as we look ahead for this team and the work that Bill Armstrong has ahead for him, the team has 7 picks in the 2026 draft. They have 2 in the third round, their own, and Carolina's, which they got in the Shane Gostisbehere trade in 2023 when the team is still in Arizona. They have 2 in the 5th round, their own, and Chicago's pick that was acquired at the 2025 deadline. They have none in the 2nd round. That went to Calgary as part of the MacKenzie Weegar trade, and none in the 6th round as a result of a swap of picks with Nashville last June. Team has about $5.5 million in cap space, and of course that is going to increase, and I think that market now has become considerably more attractive to people than it might have been 2 years ago. The UFAs, Alex Kerfoot, Kevin Stenlund, Kevin Rooney, and Kailer Yamamoto up front, Ian Cole and Nick DeSimone on defense, and as we mentioned before, Vitek Vanecek in goal, and their lone RFA forward, Barrett Hayton.
Well, it sounds to me out of the UFAs that you just named that Alex Kerfoot would be the one guy they would focus on to try to get back re-signed before any of the others. And then who are they going to go get to replace some of these guys that will either wander off or they will not try to re-sign? Bill Armstrong's, yes, he's got his work ahead of him, but all the GMs do. And when you talk about each team as we do on spring cleaning, Utah doesn't have as much work as a lot of teams have to do this summer.
Do you see this team continuing to grow based on the experience that they have had this year and perhaps just fill in a few more parts to give them that extra depth that not only makes them a playoff team, but now starts to move them towards that borderline contender spot?
I think it's going to take a few years before they can be a contender, but I do think you might see them jump up and be a contender to be in the top 3 in their division.